Hi everyone, Tim2Wheels here, and on this how-to video, I'm going to show you a budget upgrade for a stock seat on a KLR650. Okay, so for any of you who have ever ridden a KLR on a stock seat for more than an hour, know just how uncomfortable these seats can be. It's not just the KLR. Many bikes come with a very uncomfortable stock seat. Now, I have a budget fix for this. There are many fine quality aftermarket seats out there by companies such as Sargent, Seat Concepts, many others out there who make really good seats. And I was really seriously considering doing the Seat Concepts upgrade. I've heard a lot of good things about them from other riders, but it's about $160 just for the kit to recover using your same seat pan. I think it's around a little over $200 if you buy the full seat with their seat pan. And I may eventually end up doing that, but for right now, I want to give it a try. So what I'm looking to do, my wife is a quilter, and we were at a local foam and fabric shop. And, while she was looking at fabric and whatnot, I was wandering over looking at the foam and cool stuff. And what I found was this piece of about 1 inch thick. Honestly, I don't know exactly what kind of foam it is, but it feels good. It's not like a memory foam, it's more like a gel quality to it. But as you can see, I got a piece that's 19 inches by 20 inches is what they had in the bin. And it was $4. I thought, what the heck, for $4, it's worth a shot. So I brought it home, and I laid it over the seat and sat on it, and it feels really, really good. So what I'm going to try to do is disassemble the seat cushion by removing the staples and then laying the cover off of it. And then I think it would be too thick if I add this in addition to the foam that's on here. My cover wouldn't fit. So what I'm going to try to do is carve down the stock foam that's here and then inlay that more dense black foam on the top of it and perhaps around the side to give me that extra cushion. Now, to be perfectly honest with you, I'm not 100% sure this is going to work well. But again, for $4, it's worth a shot. I figure worst case, the seat's going to be no more comfortable than it was before, but I think it will be. Also, my wife rides with me a lot, so I may try to even build the back up just a tad because it's pretty thin back here. So the next step, we're going to start tearing the seat apart and give this a try. Okay, so I've changed the angle of the camera so we can see the workbench here, and I have my seat off. So what we're going to do is we're going to start and just kind of start removing some of these staples that you can see around the edge where it's stapled, the cover is stapled to the seat pan itself. The white plastic base is known as the pan, so that's the seat pan. Inside you see there's the foam, and then there may or may not be a plastic cover over this to help keep it waterproof. If there's not, I may add a layer of plastic to help with waterproofing. I've been in this bike a lot in the rain, some pretty hard driving rainstorms, and I've never had a problem with the factory seat leaking or getting wet. All right, so let's get started. There's no real major way to start. Let's just start back here on the back. It's just because it's easier to get to. I'm going to get under here with just a flat blade screwdriver. Again, just trying to be careful and not tear or rip the upholstery. You can also go under it if you want, and that will make it easier to get under the screws. Either way is fine. So what I'm doing is I'm just going through here. Loosening up some of these. Now eventually, even though I'm doing this cheap fix, I'll probably look at getting a better seat at some point down the road, but right now the budget just doesn't allow for it. Anybody who rides a KLR is typically going to be budget minded. That's why we have these bikes. KLRs kind of get a bad rap. Sometimes they're called pigs. They're not real fast. They're not super powerful. They're not really good looking, but they're just a good all-around bike. And they're cheap to buy, inexpensive to buy, I guess, and inexpensive to operate. There's not a lot that you can't do to these bikes yourself, which appeals to me. I'm kind of a hands-on, do-it-yourself kind of person. And that's one of the reasons I liked it. The electronics are virtually non-existent on a bike like this. It's carbureted, so there's no electronic fuel injection. There's no fancy computer to adjust ride, to adjust, all the engine performance and everything like that. It's just a simple single-cylinder bike. And, to be honest, that's really all I wanted right now. Yeah, I'd love to have a KTM or a GS Adventure BMW, but I just, can't spend, anywhere from $15,000 to $23,000 on a new motorcycle. And then, because what I want to do is knock around with it off-road, tool around here. I'm not going to do too much long-distance traveling. But these bikes, these KLRs are all over the world. People have traveled all over South America, all over Europe, all the way around the world on them. Parts are usually available and plentiful. So it just depends on what you're looking for. You're not going to win any sex appeal award riding a KLR, and you're not going to win any races, but it will get you there. Especially if you know how to treat it and how to work on it yourself. Chances are it's not going to leave you stranded. So I'm going to fast forward through some of this removal because you'll be bored to death if you sit here and watch me remove every single one of these staples. Okay, so that part is done. And as you can see, I noticed as I was taking this off, there is some plastic here to help with the weather protection of the foam underneath the liner. So let's go ahead and just gently ease that off of there. Well, look like the plastic's pretty torn right here, so from years of use, so it wasn't doing a whole lot. I'll probably find some new plastic and replace that. So there, I've been able to pull the liner off, leaving it attached along here. And I think that's going to work so far because that's for what I need to do. And the reason I'm doing that is just to help with putting it back on. It will help keep it aligned in its original position. It may not be a major deal or not. So the next step, obviously I'm going to need to peel this plastic back and see if I can find some that's similar to this that I can replace. It's interesting though, even given that the plastic had huge holes in it, I never had an issue with having a wet seat. So I guess the cover itself is pretty water repellent or pretty waterproofed. So I'm just going to go ahead and pull that off. It was just held on in a few spots, it looks like, with some adhesive. So I'm just going to lay that aside. I may have to reuse it if I can't find any replacement, but I think I've got enough stuff around here. Okay, so now with a Sharpie, I have a kind of a midpoint, fine point Sharpie. What I'm going to do is to kind of sketch out where on the seat I want to cut down into the stock foam and build up with my new foam. I can feel a big difference between this foam and this foam, so I'm hoping it really is going to help. So I think what I'd like to do is kind of start back here and then come out thinking kind of parallel to the top of the seat, even though it won't be parallel with the pan. And then I want to come over to the side like a bit of a skirt and come down this way. So my piece of foam here, if I overlay on the back, is going to come up to about here. And let me just put a mark across the seat just to give me an idea. And then I may end up actually, because I'm going to have some plenty of excess left over, I may end up just putting like another strip across the front, separate to to kind of pad that area as well. So what I'm thinking here is to come down from the edge of the seat, and I have a straight edge here to help mark it. Maybe come down about 2 inches, because that would fit in the back here, and then 2 inches up front would be down this side. That's really all that you're going to need. So let's just kind of mark it from that seam, maybe 2 inches there, and about 2 inches down here, because the thickness of the foam starts to taper as you get close to the seat pan, and I may have to shave some of that off. So that gives me that idea, and even if I carry that through, 2 inches up here is going to come down about there. Now, I have seen some companies out there that have basically gel inserts for your seats that do it the same way. They sell you a gel pad, and then you have to kind of come in here and mark and lay out the how you want to where you would cut out to insert the gel pad. So I'm kind of thinking I'll come along like that, and then start coming up over this edge here. And that will pad where I sit and give me a little room to shift forward here as well. And then on this back side, I'm just going to do the same thing by marking down kind of a couple inches from that this seam line. I just love Sharpies. They're great for so many uses. And so that's basically it. Now let's mark along our back here. Again, I'm not sure how well that's going to compress down, but let's just kind of come up and then follow along the back side as well. So on this side, we're just going to kind of bring this back around and bring these lines in to meet. So that's generally what I'm thinking, is to remove about an inch down of this material, the stock foam, so that I can then lay in the black foam. Now I am going to measure this to see, and it is about 1 inch more or less. It does compress down, but of course so does this. So I may take out maybe like 3/4 of an inch of the foam, and that'll leave this up a little more dense, a little higher, to sit a little proud of the original surface. And over time it might compress down. I'm not real sure. But just want to give myself kind of a general centerline reference. And I may start cutting down that line and then working my way out. So I'm starting with, I have a utility knife, basic utility knife, and I put a fresh razor blade in there to help with the cutting. As far as guides go, let's see. If I let that penetrate fully, it's going to be just over an inch. So I may bring this back out or reduce it. And that's going to be good, because then if I let it go up to the guide penetration, it's going to be just shy of an inch right there. And then I'll have to use my own judgment on the rest of it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start here and just penetrate into the foam. I'm not going to go all the way down first. I want to kind of move along. There's no reason to try to make the full cut the first time. Depending on the sharpness of your blade, you may have trouble doing that. And I don't want to start just tearing the foam out in chunks. You can hear it kind of clicking along. But there, see, I've got it about an inch of penetration in there. Now, some of you may just cringe at the thought of taking a razor blade to your seat and cutting into it. And you know, if you don't want to, that's fine. It's certainly your choice. But I have done enough projects over the years to know there's not a whole lot that you can't fix if you mess it up. And I mean, worst case scenario, you know, I'm on the phone to like Seat Concepts saying, hey, I screwed up. I need to buy one of your seat kits. And then you get new foam, you get new cover, everything. So let's come up here now. Now I'm coming along this back side here. I think it's a new blade, but it's still kind of jumping on cutting. Now the tricky part, to me, this was the easy cut. Tricky part is now going to be getting up under it and working it off. So in chunks would be good. So I'm going to kind of go across here in a section. Give me a place to get started. So I'm going to keep working with this and take the foam out. Okay, so as you can see, I've got the foam removed down on half the seat. I decided to slit down the middle and to show you a comparison. Now granted, this is not perfect and smooth, and it kind of came out in chunks a little bit, but for the most part, it's following the contour that I wanted. Again, I'm not real worried about how it looks underneath. Ideally, I'd like for it to be smooth, but it's not going to matter. I'm going to glue the new foam over it. But here I just want to give you an example of the contour. And as you can see, especially right in here, it's a perfect match right now. It's perfectly smooth transition. Now I left it a little high in the back here for the reason I mentioned earlier. I wanted to build it up a little thicker so that my wife sitting in the back has a little bit more cushion than she did before. So I think by the time I put the cover on, then that's going to match up pretty well. So the next step is to do the same thing with this other half. I wanted to show you that I ended up going to my tackle box and getting out my fillet knife. So if any of you have a fish or have a fillet knife, it works out pretty well because the blade is so thin. It's also fairly flexible for filleting fish, and just make sure it's got a nice sharp edge on it, and it'll do a pretty good job of slicing through that foam. So I'm going to flip it around here and then do the exact same thing on this side, and then we can start attaching the new foam and putting the cover back on. So we'll start up here in the front. It's really hard to do this and get the camera angle right, but I want to be safe. So I'm just inserting the fillet knife, and I'll go all the way through here this time and kind of follow the same contour. And as you can see, that fillet knife does a pretty good job. Use a little bit of a sawing action, helps. Maybe try from this side. Always try to cut away from you, of course, for the. And there. Now that piece comes off, and that's actually looking better than the other side did, because the other side I was kind of experimenting. I mean, come back in here with a razor knife and kind of trim off any of these high spots, cutting through here with the razor knife. Razor blade definitely has a little bit better edge on it than my fillet knife. Probably could have taken the time to sharpen it, but I didn't. And I want to start being careful. I don't want to cut down into the part of the foam that's going to be staying with the seat. So I want to be careful. So just take little cuts to finish that section off. Now this is definitely a little more work than buying a seat and just put it on your bike. I'm doing this partially to save money and partially just to see if I can and to see how it turns out. So now let's just get a rough fit feel. It's not cut to width, but I just want to see, like on the sides here, how it's going to blend and come across. And then I'll cut the foam to fit here in just a moment once I get a better idea. I think it's going to work pretty well. See as we get here, and then we'll start to taper back up, and then I'll insert a small strip up front here to make up the difference. Okay, so once I get this cut, I want to show you there's a couple of options. You can use any adhesive spray that's designed to work with foam. I'm going to use this 3M Super 77. It's made to work with fabric and foam primarily. I'm sure it works with many other things. bonds many other surfaces. Looks like this plastic, papers, metals, etc. And there's also, I have like Elmer's spray adhesive. There's many adhesives out there on the market. This 3M spray is a little better, at least from what I've heard. So I'll be using that once I get this cut to put down an adhesive layer on both pieces of foam and then stick them together. But we'll get to that here in just a moment. Okay, just applied the adhesive to both pieces. As you can see, the adhesive is applied. It's like super tacky. I tried to get a little bit around the edge, cover the inside, and I also sprayed this as well. So what I'm going to do now is apply this, and it's probably not going to be too forgiving, so get that in there, seat along that edge, and then just kind of roll it over. Boy, it's sticky stuff. Applying a little pressure and pushing it to the side as I do. Then tuck this back side in. Well, that is really gripping, which is a good thing. Left my bold $4 mark on there. So that part is on this side. So now I'm going to work it in to this seam here. I have already kind of cut my tapers on it. And as you can see, that's going right in there. So now we're going to apply this in the corner. And there we go. So that's actually looking pretty good. And then next what we'll do is apply the plastic cover for it. So as you saw, the original plastic was ripped in a few places. So I'm going to replace it. And what I found that would be a good replacement is I took a trash bag or a recycling bag. Still got to cut the top edge off of it. But this is basically half one side of it. And I'm going to use that to put over the seat, and I'll trim it to fit. So my next step is I will trim this to size, apply it, and then we'll start putting the seat cover back on. Okay, so you can see we've got our plastic cut, and I applied a little bit of spray adhesive in different spots to hold it just loosely to the seat. It doesn't have to be perfect because this is going to be covered up by the vinyl seat cover, and it's just really there to provide a barrier against the moisture. So we had our one side still attached, so I'm just going to bring it back over and start working the cover around the front of the seat and around the back here with the goal of getting it back close to where it was before. And we'll have to stretch it a bit, but that's looking pretty good. And as you can see, even though it was uneven, slightly uneven, once the cover is on there, it's going to pull it down and hold it nice and smooth there. So I just have a regular old standard. This is a Stanley TR60, any staple gun that'll shoot fairly heavy duty staples. Okay, in reattaching the seat cover, I learned an important lesson. First of all, the types of staples you're using is very important. Started out using kind of these with, they're not really the heavy duty staples, and they have a flat point on them. They're fine if you're stapling into softer material, but going into this hard plastic pan, you can see they would not penetrate. Made it very difficult. So I learned that using a heavy duty staple such as these with a chisel point, and by chisel point, I mean you can see how they have the very sharp pointed teeth or legs on the staple itself. So by using those, it makes it a piece of cake to staple and penetrate into the plastic pan and properly attach the seat. So I wanted to leave these in here to show you. So I'm going to pull out those since they really did not penetrate very well. We're going to tack a staple in there. Bam, beautiful. Tap that in just a little bit because that's a real flexible. And get the folds down. Pull this over. And I'm just tacking a few, then I'll go back and make sure I get all of the others and fill in and get it centered down this straight. Bring it in. I feel like I need to stretch this over a little bit on the back side. But as you can see, it's starting to take shape. Now there's a little bit of a bulge here, but after I set my rather large rump on there and ride a few hundred miles, I have a feeling it's going to mash it right down into position just like the other one was. I'm just bringing it around and lining up the staples. You can see where they were attached before. So I'm just trying to get them pretty much back in the same general area where it's close enough to where it's stretched similar to the original. So I've got the cover back on, and as you can see, it turned out fairly well. A little bit of bulging in here, but that's okay. I added more material in here for additional padding, and I was able to build the back up a little thicker than I originally had it. All in all, I'm quite pleased with how it turned out. Of course, the real test is going to be how it feels after a long ride. So I'm going to go ahead and mount this back on the bike, put the seat back on, and of course it's rainy today, but tomorrow it's supposed to be a nice day, and I'll take it out and ride it for about 100 miles or so and see how it feels. Like I said, worst case, it feels the same as it did before, but I think it's definitely going to feel better. Anyway, I hope this video helped you if you decide you want to do something like this. It's really not that hard to do. Grand total, it cost me $4 for the foam and a little bit of my time to do the work. I think that's a pretty fair deal. If it feels better, it's a heck of a cheap seat upgrade for the KLR. And later, like I said before, as I have the money, the time, maybe I'll upgrade to a nicer aftermarket seat. All right. So due to the magic of editing, I've had a chance to ride on this seat for a good weekend. Covered about 250, 275 miles on the seat, and I'm happy to report that it is much more comfortable than the stock seat was. I can't speak to whether it's how it compares to something like a Sargent or Corbin or one of those other high-end seats that you can buy, replacement seats. But those are, I think, in the $300 to $400 range, and my fix was $4. I hope to find out someday how those other seats feel, but for right now, I'm very happy with my upgrade. So I do recommend this fix, and if you want to give it a try, you've seen how I did it, and hopefully that'll work for you as well. So this is T2W Wheels, and that's how I did it. And as always, thanks for watching.